On today's episode, why is there a generational gap on social media? What's up, everyone? It's Ryan, representing Sinister Media at sinister.media. And I had an interesting question posed from a friend, and that was why there's a generational gap on social media. It's my opinion that millennials are largely the drivers of the growth of quote unquote social media. Um, my understanding of millennials is that millennials are anyone from 81 to, I forget what the cutoff date is, till around almost 19 or 20 today. Um, and I think what was unique about millennials is that it was a generation, it was a time period where the growth of computer technology just kind of boomed, right? So my high school experience was that I started learning to do computers and programming at a time where literally every year computer power was doubling. Just every year, new cycle, every year, new cycle, every year, new cycle, every year, new cycle. And every year the memory double, and we were getting new things like new video cards and more memory and more hard drive space. And I remember the first time my friend was like, no, it's a gigahertz, like a gig processor. I remember when even just like a gig hard drive was pretty impressive. So I think what that did, because nowadays, obviously we have terabyte hard drives and you can put gigabytes on chips that are like this big. It's ridiculous. I think what that did is it created a generation that not only was comfortable with technological change, but expected it, right? You expected that your video game systems got more powerful. You expected that your computers got more powerful. You expected that everything got smaller. Cell phones popped up, and you expected that every year or two they would get new power, new capability, and all that kind of stuff. So being in a generation where changes to what you do aren't feared and instead, like anticipated, right? Like we didn't fear having to look at a manual and relearn doing what you used to do. And I don't use fear in a bad way. I mean fear as in inertia towards learning something. And I think that pattern has held steadily to a lot of what you see in social media right now. So I don't think that by any stretch of the imagination are millennials the only ones on social media, but you definitely do see a fall off, right? So millennials are probably the most up until mid to late-ish 30s. And then I think the next bracket, 30s into 40s, maybe young 50s. Anywhere from mid 50s to older 50s is the next drop fall off, and then it kind of falls off very sharply after 65. I think what tends to happen is that millennials, because we're used to it, we tend to be the first ones to try things. So we're kind of the harbingers of social media. Like hopefully not the harbingers of death. Hopefully just the harbingers of Twitter. Um, and after we have figured out the platforms, and often as we're starting to move on to the new platforms, the trendsetters start moving on to their next platform. What we've learned becomes kind of codified and becomes mass market. So I think this is interesting is actually kind of understanding how social media moves through the generational gaps, because you probably want to market to different groups depending on your social media platform. That's probably a talk for another time, but that's just kind of my take on what happened and how it happened. I don't, believe that if you're going after a particular target audience, like if you're going after an older audience, that you can't use social media. And I think that the younger audience, I don't know if they're being called Gen Y or whatever comes after a millennial. I think they're just going to be crazy, insanely like connected to this stuff. I'm already like I haven't owned like cable in 5, 6 years. I do everything on the internet. I don't buy DVDs or CDs, or I haven't had physical media. And for the kids coming up, that's their reality. Their reality is YouTube and Snapchat and Vine and all this kind of stuff. So you're just going to see more and more uptake on that as we go along. Um, yeah, so that's just kind of my thoughts on that. As always, you can send questions to the team at hello@sinister.media. I know our email address. And as usual, I'm Orion. Until next time, peace.